I am here. Okay, recording progress. All right. Welcome to the Black Educated Tea Podcast. I'm your host, Makeda Marie, and today we have a special guest with us. Today we have Miss Terri Lomax. I'm so excited. She has graciously joined us today. Oh man, this lady has done so many amazing things. I mean, I cannot name them all. First, she is a brand strategist. She is a host of a globally recognized podcast. And oh my gosh, she has Terri Consulting. She's the co-founder of Cultivating Her Space, which I have been following for several years now. Oh, Terri is a beautiful young lady. She does all of these things, and I can explain them, but I want her to definitely just explain who she is, what she does, and only a way that she can do for herself.
Thank you so much, Makeda. I'm so excited, girl. I'm so excited for this conversation. I will say, Makeda, when I think about the different roles that I have in life, I am a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a podcaster, an entrepreneur, an employee now, a sister, a daughter. But when I think about like the essence of who I am, like outside of the roles that I fill, I'm a creative, I am a truth seeker. I am an explorer. Y'all can call me Terri the Explorer because I be exploring all aspects of life. I'm an overcomer and also a legacy builder. And I would say that at this phase of my life, like I'm 15 months postpartum, I feel like I'm still a new mom, but I am really prioritizing being a mother, being a wife, being an employee, because I really value that these days, even though I've been on my entrepreneurship journey, like I am into that right now. And then I feel like there was one more thing that I forgot, but I'll maybe come back to it if it comes back to me. But that's what I'm prioritizing in this season.
I mean, because there's so many hats, it's like impossible to really just off the top of your head. Because when you think about it, the list is probably 50 different titles that you may have. So it's really like impossible to think of all of them. So, how do you manage being all of these different people and then making it look so good in the process?
Girl, well, I don't know. I don't know if it looks so good. I try my best on social media to be transparent and let people know, like, hey, y'all, I was depressed today. Like, I try to let people behind the curtain so they can see that everything, because people on social media, you know how it is. Like, you see the highlight reel, you see that everyone's rich, everyone has, the best relationship, everyone, their kids are amazing. They don't act up and cut up and, you know what I mean? Like, everything is just so perfect. And I really try to find a balance between honoring my sacred journey and like not letting people into too much, but then also being transparent as I feel comfortable being, letting people know, especially with my journey, like, y'all, I be struggling with depression and anxiety, or like I be struggling with body image. Like I try to let people into that. So I wouldn't say that it looks good. Some people may say that, but I'm here to let y'all know I be a hot mess. Okay, I be a
No,
hot
no,
mess.
you make it look
Girl.
good. You really do make it look good. And I just love the transparency that you do have. And that's why I have been able to follow your journey and really just appreciate the fact that you are transparent and you let us know it's real out here. You have struggled with depression, which I have as well. And I still do at times. I mean, even as an adult, a mother, a wife, all these different types, I still struggle as well. So I just appreciate your transparency and letting people know it's okay. It's okay to struggle and it's okay to have those moments. So thank you for that as
You are
well.
so welcome, girl. I feel like when I was in a space in my journey where I was like really finding myself in grad school, for me, I think growing up in church, I was always, how they have testimony time in
Oh,
church and people
yes.
tell their testimonies, like,
Yes.
right? Like I grew up around that, so I've always valued the transparency and being able to connect with people on a deep level. But when I was in grad school and I was searching for myself and figuring out like who am I, who is this woman that I want to build and become, I did not see a lot of people talking about can we cuss on your podcast?
Yes, you sure can.
Okay, I didn't see people talking about the real shit because
Yep.
we be cussing on my podcast. I didn't see people talking about the real shit, and I was like, well, I look nice on the outside based on what people say. They're like, oh, you look nice today, oh, girl, your outfit's cute. That's nice, but like on the inside, I'm struggling a lot, and so that's why I really try to make it a point that no matter how successful I become or how much I achieve, I want to let people know like, "Yeah, I was depressed yesterday."
Yeah.
Or, this childhood trauma thing that I thought was, gone, like I'm in therapy again for that. You know what I mean? So I do try to do that. So I appreciate you seeing that, Makeda, and like appreciating the
I really
transparency.
have. I mean, because even your book, and I want to touch on that as well. I remember when you released the book, I was like, okay, I got to hurry up and get this right now, just because of your journey. And I wanted to read the book. And when I read it, I was like, oh my God. I mean, you touched on everything, toxic relationships, just, relationship with your mom and the struggles. And you left nothing, you put everything, absolutely everything on the table. And I really just appreciate that, because I saw so much of myself when I was reading this book, because how you touched on statistically, you should not be where you are today. I was like, I'm the same way. As a high school dropout, many people would not have thought that I would have a podcast, I would be in a doctoral degree, all of these things. So when I saw that, I was like, statistically, I shouldn't be here either. So I totally agreed with that part of the book. I mean, a part of the book just being amazing anyways.
Thank you, girl. I appreciate you. It definitely was a labor of love. And I looked through my journal entries and, went through some therapeutic processes to really compile those experiences. But I really appreciate you saying that, because it was definitely difficult to write, but it felt good to birth.
I know it did. And I suggest to everyone watching this podcast, please just go out and purchase the book. I am going to put the link on there and everything, because it is a life-changing book. It really is, because it's so many different things and so many points in your life that I think everybody could relate to. There is a story for absolutely everybody. Then the fact that you can actually answer and write in this book. So it's like a book, but it's a journal at the same time. And I am a
Yes.
huge advocate of journals and writing and just letting it all out. So this book is like an all one-stop shop for everything you need. So I am definitely going to put the link in there, because I suggest for everybody to really go buy it. So I want to talk about your podcast, Cultivating Her Space podcast.
Yes.
That podcast, oh my God, I have been following you all for like 2 years now. And I found that, I think, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Okay.
And I just could not stop listening. So I was tuning in weekly. And just to say, 200 plus episodes, globally recognized podcasts.
Girl.
I mean, just over 3 million downloads now.
Yes.
Man, how does that feel? And would you have ever fathomed that you would be at this point in your podcast?
You know what? I will say, like, usually whenever I start off on a new goal, like, I do anticipate it being successful. Like, I'm like, okay, I want this to be successful. And I had these lofty dreams, but I feel like I had a brand before the podcast, right? And before writing the book, and I had this big vision for it, but it didn't really take off the way I anticipated. So when I transitioned, Dr. Dom and my co-host and myself transitioned to the podcast, we really didn't have a goal like that. Like, it was more so, it wasn't really a numerical metric that we wanted to reach. It was more so, we want to create the space for Black women, and we want Cultivating Her Space to be a space for us. And so as we began to be consistent with it, we just saw that it grew. It really grew beyond our wildest dreams. And we were just like, oh my gosh. So it feels amazing. It does feel incredible. And at the same time, because of our personalities, like, there's always more to grow and there's more to do. So it's like this balancing act of appreciating where you are and what you've accomplished, and then being excited for what's to come.
Wow. I mean, that just shows how humble you are. I mean, the fact that your podcast is in the top 1% of podcasts, and you're just so gracefully like, oh, we didn't really, but the fact that you didn't have a goal for it. And I'm honestly the same way. I created my podcast because I'm really soft-spoken, I'm really shy. And it was really beneficial for me to be able to speak up for myself. And it was really therapeutic for me. So I really didn't have a goal on, I want these many views, or I want these many likes, or I want these many subscribers. I don't have a goal for that, because I really figure if it touches people and if it resonates with people, then it will grow into something bigger. But it was more personal reasons on why I really wanted to do it. So I'm the same way. I don't have a goal on, what I wanted to reach. But if it does reach, the success that I'm hoping that it does, and I'm really sure, and I'm believing that it will. I'm speaking it into the universe that it will. But that wasn't the ultimate goal. So thank you for really just saying, like, I can have a goal, but it really feels good to reach to that point. Huh?
For sure, it definitely does. And I feel like in this day and age, people are to a degree like wrapped up in the numbers and the optics of things. And so I will say that the great thing about having a podcast that is in the top like 1% is that you can leverage that for other opportunities. And so being able to get sponsors, being able to pitch some of our like dream guests and things of that nature and just continue with the mission that we have. I think that is really awesome. But a lot of the things, I mean, Makeda, it's like one day someone had told us, I think that we were like mentioned in Forbes and like we had a Black Enterprise post. And as amazing as that is, like I want more features. I love that. But at the end of the day, like that doesn't do anything for me in like my day-to-day life. You know what I mean? Like I'm more concerned with, who I am behind, like outside of social media. And I'm more concerned about my mental health and like who I am as a person, like my essence and my character and integrity and those kind of things. And so all that's amazing. Like I want the awards, I want the features and all that, because I do think it helps in the physical world, but I'm more concerned with like who I am as a person, if that makes sense, and the legacy I'm building with those that are closest to me.
That makes total sense, because I think a lot of times we do get wrapped up in social media. And I always say I love social media because it's beneficial in so many ways. But I'm like, let's step aside and live in reality. I mean, we have real lives outside of social media. And to me, that is what's most important: my family, my friends, my mental health, my personal and professional well being. And social media is just there. It's entertainment, and, it can help you. And I look at it as entertainment at this point sometimes, because I try to separate my personal life from social media, because I'm like, a lot of things on social media just not real. It's a facade a lot of times. So I try to separate myself from that. So, I want to ask you this last question, then I want you to leave us with a astonishing statement that I know you can. So I know you are a huge manifester, and I really picked that up on the conference that I attended in February, the Empowerment Conference. So thank you for that. It was absolutely wonderful. And you had a whole segment that talked about manifestation. So can you please just explain to us, how do you manifest, or at what point did you even know that you were a huge manifestation person?
I will say that one, again, for me, a lot of this started in church because I feel like technically I'm a PK because my grandfather was a bishop, my grandmother's a pastor, parents are both ministers. So I just grew like I was that church girl growing up. Like that's what everyone knew me as. And so for me, I remember being in church and my pastor would always say things like, you have to see a thing here in your mind
Mhm.
before you bring it into fruition, before you see it in reality. And we would hear things like, you have to speak it into existence, right? Speak those things that aren't as though they were. So that was like the groundwork for me manifesting. And I think as I've begun to grow and evolve as the woman I am today, I'm not necessarily as religious, but I am spiritual and I do have a relationship with God and things of that nature. And so for me, manifestation has changed a bit and it looks a little bit differently. But I would say for me, it's really just being super clear. And of course, I brought some tips from the Vibrate Higher workshop, and you all can register for that at newyearworkshop.com and catch the replay. But I did bring some tips along. But for me, I think the first, we'll just dive into tip number one. The first tip is really to know what you want. And I know that probably sounds a little counterproductive because earlier I said for the podcast, we didn't really have a metric. We didn't have a goal in mind that was tied to numbers. It was more so tied to impact, but we did know what we wanted as far as what we wanted to do for our community by way of impact. So I would say know what you want. And I think there are three parts when it comes to knowing what you want. What do you want, right? What do I want? How do you want to feel once you get what you want? And then why do you want what you want? I think that getting clear on that is just so important because a lot of times we have sort of adopted other people's wants onto us. Like I remember for a long time, my grandfather used to always say, like, I want you to be a doctor or a lawyer. And I was like, okay, cool, Papa. I don't want to do like that's not that hands down. Shout out to all the doctors and lawyers. That just wasn't my
Yeah.
passion. And I saw so many people that pursued passions that their family wanted them to pursue, and they were successful, but they weren't happy and they
Yeah.
were unfulfilled. And I was like, well, I want to do what's going to really make me happy. So why do you want what you want, right? So again, that's number one is know what you want and digging a little bit deeper. What do I want? Like spell it out. What is that? How do I want to feel when I get what I want? And then why do you want what you want? So that's number one. Number two is confront your fears and doubts. I think that's so important because a lot of times I believe that for a long time, adopted this, I want to say, toxic positivity mindset, which I've
Wow.
seen on social media. And for me, it's just like ignoring all the negatives and pretending that my fears don't exist, although they do, and then just trying to focus on what I want. But the stuff that I don't want keeps on coming up. And when I think about this number two, this tip two here, it brings me back to when I was manifesting my positive home birth when I had my first child.
Wow.
And for me, one of my biggest fears was having a C-section. And again, I know everyone has their own birth story. Ladies, if you're listening, like this is not to shame anyone's story or downplay it. I just had a certain vision in mind for me that I wanted. And one of my fears was having a C-section. My other fear was being transported to the hospital because we've invested so much into having a home birth. And so those were just two things I didn't want. I didn't want in my journey. So what I did was I worked with my coach, and one of the things my doula had me do was she said, okay, we're going to pack a hospital bag because we want to be responsible. Like, although we're manifesting a home birth and we're manifesting that, let's just say that something ends up happening. And this is part of my story that I may not have known that I needed. That's just part of my story going to the hospital. Let's be responsible.
Yep.
Let's
Let's
pack the
be
bag,
prepared. Yep.
be prepared for all
Mm-hmm.
outcomes, right? Pack the bag. We're going to put it in the closet because it's out of sight, out of mind. It's there if we need it, but I
Yeah.
didn't have to see it every day and have anxiety. I also wrote a letter to myself and kind of journal about my fears. Like, why don't I want this particular
Mm.
outcome? Just address it, right? Get it out there so that
Yep.
it's not
Have to.
lingering and it's not, you know, flowing within yourself unaddressed. Let's address it head
Yeah.
on, face, like we're gonna face the fear. Like, okay,
Yep.
all right, fear, we having a conversation. This is how I feel. This is why I don't want this outcome. Wrote the letter, boom. Now
It is
I've
out there now.
processed, it's out there, right?
Yep.
I've processed those emotions. I got it out of myself. Whenever it came up for me, it was like, okay, what if you have a C-section? It's like, thank you for bringing that up. We've addressed it. Like I say it to myself. I have
Mm-hmm. Yep.
conversations with myself often. I'm like, thank you so much for bringing that up. That's not what we're manifesting, but we have a letter here. Like I'm going
Just
through
in
the process
case.
myself, right?
Yeah.
Just in case. So confronting the fears and doubts, that's number 2. Number 3 is visualizing your desire as with as much detail as possible and believing
Yes.
that it's possible for you. So for me, this meant me, even during my phase, like trying to get pregnant, I was taking spiritual baths almost daily. And I would spend that time visualizing my desired outcome. I'm not super scientific here, y'all, but you can look up many athletes
Yeah.
that use visualization to really help them in their game. Like they perform better when they visualize their success. And so for me, some people don't want to do it because it just, oh, it may not work. Well, it ain't gonna work for you if you
If
don't
you don't
believe it, if you
try
don't
it,
try it.
exactly. You have
But
to.
girl, I was in that tub visualizing everything. And I actually did this while I was trying to get pregnant. And I remember like rubbing my belly. I would talk to my baby. I did all these things as I was trying to manifest the baby. And then once I got pregnant, I would be in the tub and I would be manifesting
Mm-hmm.
the ideal birth. And it's so funny because that same tub is the same tub I labored in.
Oh,
And the birth
wow. So
story,
that is a magical, just all out tub,
girl,
you know?
okay, the tub was magical. Okay, labored in the tub, in the bathroom, all that. And honestly, I feel like things happen really pretty much the way that I envisioned it. So that's number 3, visualization. Number 4 is tap into the future feeling often. So
Mm,
for me,
yes.
this when I think of this tip, it brings me back to when I was not pregnant, but I was trying to manifest my daughter, going through fertility treatments and stuff like that. And I remember being in the tub, and I remember just like I was crying because I thought about what it would be like to be a mom. Like I tapped into the future feeling of having what I
Yeah.
wanted. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I love being a mom. This feels amazing. Thinking about conversations with my daughter, I thought it was going to be a son, but my child and I would have, right? Just really feeling it because our body doesn't know the difference, right? It's like when you think back to a traumatic experience and you re-traumatize yourself, your body doesn't know that you're not
Right.
reliving that experience, right? So tapping
Exactly.
into the future feeling often. And the number 5 is let go and flow.
Let go and flow.
Let go and flow.
Let go and flow. And I really that wow. I can feel I'm really tearing up, honestly. Because you have to have all of those in line. I don't think, for some people, for me, every step that you name in part of manifestation, to me, it has to flow in alignment. Because for one, you have to think it, you have to speak it. But then I am a huge manifester, so I have to always say, okay, I'm now speaking these things into the universe. What do I do once I get them? What's the next step? Because that's like there's no doubt I'm going to get it because I am positive and I'm headstrong that I'm speaking this and I'm putting so much faith and emphasis behind it that I'm going to get it. But what do I do when I get it? I'm asking for this. The universe is going to give it to me. what do I do with it once I get it? What are my outcomes? How do I react to it? So that's something that I had to personally practice, because for me, it was just like, oh, okay, I want this. And then I would get it. And I was like, okay, what do I do next? How do I approach this? I got it. It's like, what do I do with it? How do I feel about it? So, thank you so much for all of those steps, because you have to follow those. You have to think it. You have to put action behind it. How does it make you feel once you get it? Then what do you do with it when you get it? I mean,
Exactly. Because sometimes, Makeda, you might tap into the future feeling and then you're like, you know what? I actually really don't want this, right? And then you can get clear on what you really do want. And one of the things I want to add, 'cause I got to add something.
yes.
So when you talk about letting go and flowing, one of the big challenges I had with that is when I thought I was letting go, I still had the energy of lack in my spirit and in my being. And so what that will look like is, okay, if you're manifesting money and then you wake up and like, damn, I don't have enough money. Man, I can't wait to get this money. The
Yep.
energy that you have right now is still coming from a place of lack. So instead of that, it's leaning into gratitude.
Yep.
So for me, it's sometimes it feels like a game of pretend. Like I don't have it with me right now, but when I was manifesting my daughter, I know my husband was like, girl, what? Like, my wife is crazy. Not really, but I know he'd be looking at me like, okay, that's what we're doing now.
But it
So,
worked. But it
but it worked, right?
worked.
So you probably remember this from the workshop. So we had a coffee table at our old place. And when we moved, I decided to get an ottoman. And this makes me a little teary-eyed. So I decided to get this soft ottoman because I thought to myself, you know what? When the baby's in the living room playing around, I don't want the baby to like hurt, herself on the edge of the coffee table. So I decided to change it out. And I got this years in advance. Before I was even pregnant, I got these little baby signs that said like, take your shoes off when you come into our home because the baby ain't no baby in sight, not pregnant. The doctors are like, sorry, you have unexplained infertility. But a part of letting go and flowing for me was living life as though it were
Yep.
already done. And now my baby be playing on the ottoman out there, and I just be like,
Because
that's
you
just
were already preparing for it. You were getting your house, you were getting, and I tell people this all the time. If you want your product, just say in Target. I always tell people, get you a bottle. If you're selling lotion, body oil, whatever it is, take your product, put it on the shelf at Target. Take a picture of it, and see what it looks like on the shelf at Target if that's what you want. So already start preparing and visualizing how do you want your product, or whether it's professional, personal, career, whatever it is. I mean, even if you're going through therapy and you want your outcomes to be as such, go ahead and start thinking that way, trying to, live that way. So you have to always go through the whole steps to fully manifest. It's a process.
it is a process indeed, for sure.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, those are really good tips, and they are going to be beneficial for me because I'm definitely on my spiritual journey, manifestation, all of that. I am definitely, I've never really been a religious person, but I definitely truly believe in a higher being. I believe in God, all of that. So I'm on my spiritual journey, and so that manifestation, your tips is really going to be beneficial for me as well as others. So I want you to leave us with one last statement. And just what advice would you give anyone that's looking to either start a podcast or start a consulting business or just whatever they want to do in life? What particular advice would you give them based on everything you have been through thus far in your life?
Yes, there's a quote that I have at the bottom of my signature, and I forget how to pronounce the author's name, so you all will have to Google this. My apologies, but the quote is so powerful, and the quote says, "The Creator did not give you a longing to do that which you have no ability to do." I'm gonna
Mm,
say it one more time. Say it one more time.
wow.
The Creator did not give you a longing to do that which you have no ability to do. And for me, it just means that if you have the idea, like if you have that inkling, if that thing keeps on coming up for you, when you're at your day job, you're like, man, I really wish I could do this. Or you're going to sleep at night and you're just daydreaming about that business or that book or going back to school or your podcast. It's coming up for a reason.
Yeah.
So go explore it, right? It may not be the thing that like sets your journey off, but there's probably something that you need on that journey to whatever that thing is that's going to help you get to where you want to be. And so I would say tap into it. It's coming up for a reason. Like trust your intuition, trust those signs.
And we have to. And
Yes.
I think I realized that maybe about 10 years ago when something just kept popping up and I would see it on TV or I'm sleeping and I'm waking up out of my sleep and I'm thinking of this one particular thing. And so if something is continuously popping up, no matter where you're at, it's a reason it is. It is a reason that it is. And it could be one of those life-changing events, or it may even be a foundation or stepping stone to the next point of your life. Who knows, but if something is really just hitting you every time you look around, you have to really tap into it and see what's the reasoning for it. So now say that quote one more time for the people in the back.
Yes, let me say it for the people in the back. So the quote is, and the author, I believe his name is like Oren. I can look it up, but yeah, it starts with an O, and I believe the last name starts with an S. But the quote is, "The Creator did not give you a longing to do that which you have no ability to do." So if the thought is there, and you're like, "Oh, that means you have what you need within to do it." You may not believe it, but just move forward. You
Just
got
move
it.
forward, because you have all the tools, the resources, the support. You more than likely you have everything that you need, even if you don't realize it. If the thought is popping up, then you're already prepared, even if you don't believe you are, because there's a
You just
reason
gotta
for
move.
it. You just gotta
That's
move.
right.
You just
Gotta
gotta move.
Do something. Take
You just
something.
gotta
Move
do
something.
something. Just do it. Just like Nike say, just do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. I want to gracefully again thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm a big, huge advocate on giving people their flowers while they're here. And I want to give you your flowers for motivating me to do the podcast and being able just to follow your journey and see so much of myself in you. And, you have definitely helped me throughout this. So I really want to give you your flowers and say, I really do appreciate it. Not only you just being a part of my podcast, but also just being a part of, the past 2 years of my journey and stepping out of because I have those fears and doubts myself. And so seeing you do it, it really helped and motivated and encouraged me to do it as well. So I want to give you your flowers while you're here, because a lot of times we don't, but I definitely want to do that right now. And thank you so much. Thank you. That is all I can really say. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, this has been amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I know you're going to add a link to the book. I'll just give folks an easy link that they can visit. If you go to glowupbook.com, you can get the link to the book. And the book is called How to Glow Up as You Grow Up, your go-to guide for overcoming obstacles and making lemonade. And I'm on social media everywhere, Makeda, at Terri Lomax, but I love to be on Instagram. That's where I'm typically more active. So you can follow me, you all, on Instagram at Terri Lomax, that's TerriLomax. And I'll see y'all on social media.
Yeah, so please, you have to. This amazing woman right here, please follow her journey, everything that she has going. I promise you will not be disappointed. You will be amazed, and it will be a life-changing moment for you as well. So again, Terri, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast, and you have a miraculously and wonderful week. Thank you again so much. This is the Black Educated Tea Podcast.
Thank you.
So I think let me stop the recording here.